Greetings, greetings, greetings. You are now tuned into the vault. Trust Christian on nothing, control everything. Just want to thank you for tuning in live, listening to replay. Always appreciate everybody that tunes in live, listens in the replay. This is the vault, episode 510, government trust versus private trust. And this is definitely a long awaited episode. It's going to be a mix of some information in here. But this is definitely to address an audience that's reached out to us for many years. So definitely hit the like, hit the subscribe button if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet so you can get these pop up episodes. If you're a long time listener, make sure you hit the subscription button to where you can get the notifications when we go live. Definitely looking forward to this next workshop that we have coming up on September 23rd. This is definitely going to be a great workshop. I have quite a few people that we already have booked in, have people flying in from actually other countries right now. Definitely looking forward to the UK, meeting some people from Australia. It's been beautiful to kind of have some people connect from different jurisdictions. So it's always a beautiful thing. Definitely look forward to having a packed house and working with everybody going into it and as well as coming out of it. So feel free to reach out. RSVP Christian at trustchristian.com. Once again, the email to RSVP is Christian at trustchristian.com. So definitely look forward to you. Appreciate Mississippi for tuning in live, listen, replay. Always appreciate Mississippi for tuning in live, listen, replay. Feel free to hit the like and the subscribe button as well. So we're gonna hop straight into it. This episode is the government trust versus the private trust, and this is something that we've heard for years come to us. Um, and this is something that has been a big deal for a lot of people for a long time, talking about, oh, well, the government created a trust for me, and the government has a trust that I don't know about, or the government created a trust, the Sesticate trust. They have this trust. The government has a trust, and it supposedly is it for your benefit? These are the questions that we ask. They say, oh, well, I'm supposed to be the beneficiary, but I didn't know I was supposed to be the beneficiary. So now I'm the beneficiary and I'm supposed to be the trustee. Well, bam, that's how we got you. That's how you know it's not private because you're the beneficiary and the trustee. So it's a public trust. You're right. It's a government trust. It was set up for your ignorance. If you don't know how to be in the correct position, they got one by default set up for people because they know people are incompetent. So the private trust doesn't look like you're the beneficiary. It looks like any traditional Rockefeller family where the families are the trustees. Who's the beneficiary? The public. They said they're giving their wealth back to the government. They said they're giving their wealth away to charity. That's how it looks. So let's go back into this government trust stuff. Appreciate Jersey for tuning in live, listening to replay. Always appreciate Jersey for tuning in live, listening to replay. So we got this whole situation where people reach out and they say, "Oh, what do you think about the government having my name and it's in a trust?" Well, that's the first thing. You can be called whatever you want. You don't have to be called by a so-called government name. So by that being the case, what you're called and what you do business as are not the same exact thing. So can there be some conflation in that conversation? Of course. Oh man, the government, they got this entity and it has the name that I'm called and it's spelled phonetically the way that I spell it. And so for that reason, there's this trust. It's got a social security number. But if I'm in a capitalist society that's focused on business, one of the most popular episodes that we have at the Vault was one of the first few episodes we ever did. It's episode 53 because we see it so much in the replays. People go back and say, how do I use the EIN on a job instead of my social? That's one of the most popular episodes because people understand they're in a capitalist society. And for that reason, they want to explore capitalism. In turn, it's challenging to do that as an employee or using a social. Oh man, the government, they created this trust based off of my social. They created debt based off of me and my birth certificate. That's what these arguments are about the government. The government now has gone into debt because they created this debt structure, which is a form of a bankruptcy when it comes to so-called the citizens. Oh, so what are you saying? Does the government owe you something if the country's in debt? Does the government owe you something if the citizens are in debt? It doesn't sound like it to us. It says what they say it is. It's in debt. Even if you do double entry bookkeeping, what side are you on? Are you actually doing the accounting? Are you doing the accounting structure? Or is it just, oh, well, I know the government owes me some money because the government's been taking out loans on my behalf, and that's how they say that the citizens are in debt? Yes, they're called bonds, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, man. So what are you saying? The government owes you something? See, this is the difference between capitalism and communism. Oh man, it can't be that simple. This literally looks like that. The government trust is the communist system. Oh, we're going to take care of everybody. We're going to have some officials and we're going to say who's the beneficiaries and we're going to dictate the beneficiary distribution. That's literally what it looks like in Social Security right now. They move the age, they move the amount of distribute amount that can be distributed. These are things that are going on in the government trust. So why would someone want to take over the government trust? And how can you take over the government trust if you're not a qualified official? See, in the public, they have qualifications to be officials. Whereas in the private, it's just a private contract. It's a private family. It's a private family doing their thing privately. It's not public. So we got these people, they come on, they contact the VAR. It's still to this day, we've been years deep in this stuff. They want to talk about the UCC, oh, the government trust. So, okay, bam. They going to take the so-called small case name and get in control of the uppercase name. Supposedly the uppercase name is a corporation. It is a trust. Okay, it is a person. Okay, we're here with you, ladies and gentlemen. But see, ladies and gentlemen, we come from a perspective at the vault of wealth, not focused on receiving something for nothing. So if it's something for nothing, that's not accurate. But if there is a, oh, well, these people they created a bond and there's a bond and it's actually been issued on the market. And this is the argument we've heard that the birth certificate has a QSIP number on it. And in turn, it means that it's a security. And in turn, the security in the government trust is actually receiving money. Okay. So that's the social security number is receiving money. So it's sort of like when you get to the age of retirement, if you didn't put enough money in there, how's it enough money in there? See, a lot of people don't understand the statistics of that situation, but most people don't retire with enough money in the system, as they say. The system is broken. So it requires families to go into the private trust. It requires families to be in the private. It requires families to have privacy, to maintain levels of privacy. Why? Because the government's underfunded. The government's not funded properly, first of all. So how are you going to get the proper results out of it? But this is what people come to the vote and say. They say, oh, well, I got this social security number. I got this government trust that I'm aware of. And the government trust, right? And what's got inside of it? It has money in it or something. We thought it was a discharging mechanism. It was a bankruptcy mechanism. Fair enough. We can hear that argument. It's a bankruptcy mechanism. Fair enough. We're in a bankruptcy environment. That's fair. Oh man, here they want to still bring up this stuff. Oh, like we're years later. Here we go. Well, you know about HJR 192. You know that they took out, fractional, they put in fractional reserve banking. They took the money off the gold standard. What blows us, ladies and gentlemen, is in the private, first of all, there is no quote unquote. So when they talk about no money, they'll say, oh, it's no money in the public. It's no money. It's bankruptcy. It's paper. In the private, it's no national money. There are countries, jurisdictions that issue money, but there is no, oh, my family, we're American, so we only hold American dollars. Or my family, we're Chinese, so we only hold Chinese yuan. And the private, we hold everything: gold, silver, platinum. We have, you have American dollars, you have pesos, you have gold and silver for many different jurisdictions. You're when they talk about diversify, yes. But what blows our mind is how many Americans are against the dollar, one of the strongest currencies in the world. They're against it. And when you leave the country and your dollar doesn't go that far anymore, what are you going to say? You don't want the dollar to be strong anymore? We sit in front of Americans all the time. Oh man, the capitalism needs to be rethought of. If you only knew. Oh, the money structure is not right. Well, you think blockchain, which has been built on debt right now, is you think that could have been created if it wasn't for capitalism? Oh, the government trust. The government owes me something. No worries. The government might owe the citizens some money because the citizens supposedly owe money. Or it says that the government owes people money. Okay, what you think that little bit of money that the government has on debt clock, national or national debt clock or whatever, is really some significance ain't gonna change people's lives? Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Nevertheless, this government trust stuff is public trust stuff. Oh man, I'm trying to figure it out. I'm trying to figure out how not to get a speeding ticket. This is the type of stuff we get people contacting the vault all the time. I don't want to deal with what? What are you going to become, stateless? You got one of the strongest passports in the world. Are you ready to give up your passport? No, I just don't want to be considered a person. I don't want to be considered a corporation. I don't want to be considered a fake artificial person. That's fair. That's fair. You can put your county officials on notice. Remember, they're the trustees of the trust, the government trust. So you put the trustees on notice. Those trustees rotate. Those trustees don't stay the same every 10, 20, 30 years. So as you live in a jurisdiction, as you move about in different jurisdictions, you got to put people on notice. You put people on notice, letting them know that you're not a person as you're traversing throughout the environment. Oh man, I don't want to ride around with tags. I don't want to ride around with a driver's license. If I'm not driving, I'm just traveling. Did you put the officials of the trust on notice? If the police officers are officials of the trust, the county trust, the government trust, why would you not put them on notice? What do I need to put them on notice for? Well, you said that the government has a government trust, right? And then your name is a government trust, right? So did you put them on notice of the living flesh being? They come to us all the time. Why the UCC? This is no. First of all, UCC is creditor and debtor. That's not just a simple letter that shows notice. That's not public record that shows notice of a live being. I don't want to be held for a commercial debt. That's what they're saying. I don't want to be held. My body doesn't. I don't want my body to be held. I don't want the body that I'm moving around in to be stopped, inhibited. So if I do, if the name owes some debt notes because you using that name and it owes debt notes, that you actually have that you go and fulfill the obligations for those debts. The government trust. This is too easy, ladies and gentlemen. Sometimes we sat on the phone with people, we see their body language change. People get a little annoyed because it's either you think the government's gonna give you something, or you think, hey, you know what? I can create out of the belfry of my mind. I'm a spiritual being. I can create. I am not sitting here stuck waiting for the government like I'm a dependent. Like that mindset is available for you and your family to be wealthy or stay wealthy. That mindset is not available. Some people have taken on that victim mentality. Oh, I'm black. I was born in America. I was born in this country. I was dealt a bad hand. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, you were dealt a bad hand. You were dealt a bad hand. there's always new hands. You can always get it from the table. And the ones that don't choose to make those decisions, those are the ones that won't benefit from the information right now. It's about benefiting from the information right now. How are you going to benefit from the information right now? In a private trust capacity, you can literally, the trust goes out, starts a business, and it gets you back into a creative growth mindset. Whereas these people that contact the vault, reach out to the vault, oh man, the government trust, I'm going to try to see if I can write a letter to the government, put the IRS on notice, put everybody on notice that I'm about to extract the money I'm going to extract the money from the trust account, from the government trust account. How? So I'm going to go out and create a debt obligation. Then I'm going to add it to the UCC and I'm going to say that it's wiped out because there's a previous debt on here and I got a lien on it and this is a part of the debt. We can explain it. We can talk about it because we've heard the same argument for years. Is it a public process or a private process? Oh man, it's hold on. Let me think about that. Hold on. Is it a public process or a private process? When you are taking control over the public, man, is it a public process or a private process? Oh man, hold on. Let me think about that. Right. Because it's not a private process. And if it is, how is it being mixed up between public and private? This is what we heard for years now, ladies and gentlemen. They come to us. Oh man, there's this government trust, the Treasury Direct account. They got two sides to the Treasury. They got two sides to the government. This is the argument you're going to hear. They got two sides to everything. Okay, you're right. It's the public side and the private side. The government trust is the public trust. The private trust is the private trust. The private trust is the one you and your family has, not the one that the government created for you by default that you're trying to get money and extract some funds out of. That's the difference between public and private. Oh man, I can't believe that's a blow a little bit. I've been working for a long time. They've been extracting my energy. Well, hold on. Did you work for a company? That company wasn't around a long time ago. Sometimes these companies are new. Somebody created that. How you going to sit here and say, oh man, these companies are doing a number on the people? No, these are new companies. It's a choice. Are you going to create a company, private, or are you going to wait for the government to give you some money through a social? Government trust. That's okay. It's not wrong if some people got a job. It's not wrong if some people want to use the social. It is what it is. But for the ones that say, oh, I want to move in a different capacity, it isn't having one foot in, one foot out. It isn't having one foot on first base, trying to steal second. You can't. Oh, I'm trying to mix public and private. I'm trying to go private. I'm trying to take my public name and put it into private. How does that work? I'm trying to take public assets and put them into private. No, the private puts the public on notice and lets them know, hey, there is someone, y'all didn't know it, someone didn't know that this name is being used, this person is being used. That's called shelf corpse. Oh man, but the government, they raised some money off of my name. The government's made some money off of my name, and it's probably no doubt about it. It's probably no doubt about it. Government's probably did some wild funny business off your name. What are you going to do about it? Are you waiting for the government to give you a check, or are you going to go out, private family private trust, and go do it the right way? Or are you going to be like the other people complaining, oh man, the government did a number on me. My family did a number on me. I was born into ignorance. I was born into not knowing some information. Now I know the information, and now I'm trying to make them pay. I'm trying to make the government pay up. Appreciate New Jersey for tuning in live. We got New York tuning in live. Always appreciate everybody for tuning in live, listening to replay. We'll get people who say, oh man, I read Modern Money Mechanics. I read all these things. First of all, ladies and gentlemen, we are in different jurisdictions. If you are a free being, for the most part, you can go to other jurisdictions. And if you can go to another jurisdiction, you can play by a different set of rules. People get upset at the system that they're in and the system that they're in. Oh, I don't like the rules that the system has. Okay. I mean, there is no perfect system, but you can also go to another system if you feel that the rules are not in your favor. When you're in free market capitalism, the rules are definitely in your favor. That's what it is. Whereas if you go to other jurisdictions, there's many challenges in different jurisdictions, whether it's your last name, your family, not being a part of certain families in the government. There are many reasons. There's lack of capital going towards specific people. There are many reasons why people are not going to get funded in the world. There's just what it is, ladies and gentlemen. Some people get a little upset about these type of things, but these are the realities of the situation. If you want to go to an environment that you have the opportunity to build wealth, grow wealth, if you're in the United States or usually in Western free market economies, you have a massive opportunity. So it doesn't matter that these corporations are making all this money and this, that, and the third. People want to condemn the corporations, but they have the same opportunity to go out and do what the corporations are doing. How is it wrong? We were going to do an episode about how corporations pay less taxes than the employees. Is that wrong? How's it wrong? Oh man, that's wrong because you're an employee. But when you're in those type of positions, you're not going to say that that's wrong. So it just comes down to, ladies and gentlemen, are you going to participate in the private market? We're going to do some episodes coming up here about private debt. People talk about, oh, how do you raise money in a private trust? You got to go to private environments to raise the money. You can't traditionally, private trusts are not going to go to public entities and raise money. They're not going to do that. But we're going to talk about it because it just seems as though that's been a hot topic of conversation where people want to know, oh man, I don't know how to build credit on a trust. You put me, I'm not in the best position. Do you just know how to build credit on entities? That's what it comes down to. Building credit on entities. Okay, well, the government trust, people know how to do that. They do it through the social. Then you got the private trust. Oh, I don't know how to do that through the private trust. We're going to go over that. We have no problem with talking about that. You have to go to the private environments. They are willing to give you money, just like the public environments are willing to give public people money. That's just the bottom line. Remember, one of our mentors used to always say, if you don't have $1 million, you shouldn't even be in trust. That's what one of the mentors used to say. Or if you don't have $1 million, they shouldn't be in trust. It's like, wow, okay. Literally, they're telling you if you don't have enough capital to cover the cost, then you shouldn't be involved in this environment. Environment meaning private. The private environment definitely costs. People try to come to the private and think there's no money. How is there no money? The money started in the private. Oh man, there's no money. Trust Christian in the vault. Can I pay you through some debt? No, I'm not trying to pay you through debt notes. I don't want to pay you through debt notes. So what are you gonna pay through? Oh, did you offer gold? Did you offer silver? Well, I don't got none of that either. Exactly. Because you got to have some money in this environment. You got some money in the private. What are we talking about here? People say, oh man, I want to be in the private. I want to go private. I'm going to be private. Let's focus on this private stuff. Okay, so if you're going private, how do you have no money? Oh man, I don't have no debt notes. That's fair. Do you have any assets? We ran into someone the other day. I don't have any assets. What do you say to someone like that? You don't belong in trust. That's what it is. Is that a hard thing to say? Hey, it is what it is. It's not an exciting thing to say because it's really more so about how do you start if you don't have the correct foundation. That's what it really comes down to. How do you start the game? How do you play the game properly if you don't have the correct foundation? That's what the Family Foundation and Trust Workshop goes over. We go over not even just the structure, but the plan on how to actually execute that. Working with family and individual and family. How do you do that? That's what it comes down to, ladies and gentlemen. Getting business done as usual. Getting business done as usual, ladies and gentlemen. And business means you understand that it's private family business, not public, not government trust stuff. Oh man, I want the government to provide, or I want the government to give me something. People talk about going private all the time. All they gotta do is stop using the government stuff. But oh no, no, they don't want to use. They want to use the government stuff. Secretly, they have a love affair with the government. Oh man, I can't let the social go. This is what one of the mentors said to us one time. He said, "Well, trust Christian. You know, if you the reason why you're not going to give up the socials if you want to buy a house with a mortgage, or if you want to buy and specifically with the social, or if you want to go get a student loan." That's what the mentor said. When we told the mentor, though, we don't need a student loan or a mortgage, so is it a good reason to give it up still? And they told us that that was the reason why most people don't give up the social, don't give up a social security number, is because they want to get those things. They want to benefit from those things. Remember, they're the beneficiaries, right? In the public. So they're trying to benefit from being able to hypothecate money. They don't want to work hard for the money from their bootstraps. They want to use the hypothecated system. Some people condemn the hypothecation system, but then when in all actuality, they're benefiting from the hypothecation system. They don't want to go build the house themselves. We had a mentor literally has a bunch of land in Northern Virginia, and they build houses from scratch, and they were building houses from scratch. So how for $30,000, $50,000, $200,000, how do you sit here and say, oh, the government, I need to use the social? That was one of the mentors. Not to say they went back to the Amish days, but they definitely went to the move of, hey, we got to build our own things. We have to deploy our own resources. And they were unincorporated environment. They were unincorporated. Oh, I'm trying to get this land so we can all live free off the land. How you gonna live free off the land? You got to know how to develop the resources. We're gonna read some questions in the chat, ladies and gentlemen. Somebody said family's the hardest ones to do business with. In all actuality, what we've seen, ladies and gentlemen, this is where high levels of patience are required, and education is really required when it comes to working with the family and the private sector. It's not even about them getting in and doing anything, quote unquote, as a manager or officer or whatever. It's more just bringing them up to speed and getting them around the environment. We've had people come to the workshops for years with their children. People have brought their 8-year-olds in the room. People have brought their 16-year-olds in the room. People have brought 12-year-old children in the room. So when it comes to us having the workshops, people say, "Oh man, family's the hardest people." Well, maybe because you're talking about maybe from a poverty-based mentality. But if anybody is just looking and open to developing, working together, they're traditionally going to go in environments and they're going to learn together. They're going to work together and traditionally learn together. Not just always work, but learn. You usually have to start out learning together by sitting in the same room, associating with people. Traditionally, private wealth environments are focused on family environments for the most part, because it's just in the private, it's focused on families. Families usually hold wealth together. It's not just one person. It's usually multiple people in the family working together. So that's how you know you're truly focused on being private. That's how you know that you're moving in the right direction. And the biggest thing is focusing and associating with more families that are in the private, that you can identify, that you can go to those events, that you know that it might be private, and you involve your family by going to those things. So that's how we would say someone can address the family issues. Just passing along breadcrumbs to them, pieces of information, seeing how they fill out with certain pieces of information. When you pass it along, how do they respond to that information? Um, those are the things that we would say you really want to look into. Um, And see, that's another thing. People say, "Oh, I want something from the government." Once again, and this is the challenging part, is that if the government shuts down tomorrow, no one's going to get anything from the government. So this is the philosophy that's flawed, is that the government can give you something. So people will always accept anything from the government. But people don't understand. First of all, if you make a certain amount of money, this is the facts. If you make a certain amount of money in your retirement, you can't even collect Social Security. So how is there an incentive to get out of poverty? Because the only reason you're collecting Social Security is because you're in poverty. You don't want to hear that. People don't want to hear that. That's why it's like no one talks about retirement anymore. No one's going to talk about it. Baby boomers are just retiring. They're getting gigs. They're doing gig economy. What do you mean? We sit in cars with people all the time that they have degrees, 20 years, 30 years. What are we talking about here? The retirement system in America is to a degree it's broken. And it's okay if people don't want to hear that, but what are you talking about? Every other year they're talking about the Social Security being damn near insolvent and maybe not being able to pay. And then now they're talking about, oh, we might have to put a universal income in place. Why? Do you think people are getting wealthier or less wealthier through the traditional system? Oh, I'm going to depend on the government at one point to give me the pension. Right. And then the government also said, we think we might be a little insolvent in this department. And they also said, hey, we might as well go ahead and put something on a docket, maybe 10, 15 years in advance. Go ahead and start whispering. We kind of already see it because we're reading the data. Oh, it's not technology. It's not AI. Oh, yeah, we might need to go ahead and put some universal income in place. People really not manning up and womaning up and creating in the States. They want jobs. They want to use socials. They didn't want to create a business. They didn't want to create a business and go through 5 years of tough times. They wanted to go on vacations. They wanted to go to Tulum. They wanted to go to Kalamazoo. They wanted to go to the UK. So how do you build a business and you're going on vacations? What are you talking about? Usually you don't go on a lot of vacations when you're building a business in the beginning. Oh, that's what happened. There are more people dependent on the government today than people that want to build a business. That's the facts. And they want these government funds. Oh man, the government is going to give me some money at one point. Okay, cool. Keep waiting on that. Once again, the reason why people qualify for that money is because they're in poverty. You do not collect that money if you're making a certain amount of money. So how is this one of those things where, oh, it's a plus because you're getting a government fund money? See, when people are private, they have multiple sources of income. That's why they needed it to be private. So when the government said, oh, we need to see how much you're making in your elder years, we need to know how many sources of income you put together throughout your life. Because we're trying to hit you with an estate tax. So when you try to pass it along to your children, hopefully we can get you there. But if not, if you have it in an even privater position, we won't know how many sources and if you passed it along. Why? Because it wasn't in your name. That's why you trust Christian own nothing, control everything. But people want to capture the government trust. Read some more stuff in the chat. Appreciate Waco for tuning in live, listening to replay. Always appreciate Waco for tuning in live, listening to replay. This is a very sensitive subject for a lot of people because it's either you're going to just go ahead and say I got to start from zero without the government, or you just gonna keep thinking that the government has one point some money's gonna be paid out to you. And this is a tough conversation to have with people that are not thinking the private sector way. The public sector people, they still the government sector. The government trusts people. Oh, the government owes me something. Because I put in work and they owe me something now. What are you talking about? You really think these politicians don't know that they owe people? Hold on. Let's say it again. You think the government officials don't know? They know this. Do you think they're missing checks though? Not at all. So think about that. Somebody that people have elected to this position. You think about how many people voted for a president, and this man is literally sitting in a position where he knows that the government owes people money and they're not paying it out. Why? Because they know this. They're the trustees. They're not going to pay the distribution to the beneficiaries because they don't have to. They have the discernment to do that. Just like when COVID hit, oh, we need to get the government to issue some new money into the society so we can issue some money into the society. You see how the government trust works? So how is the government trust insolvent? How is it insolvent if they can issue money during COVID? Because it's just a form of modern money mechanics. It's hypothecation. These are things that have been put in place for over 100 years so they can issue that money. So they can lie to you and tell you they're insolvent, but then at the same time issue money during COVID. That's how it looks. So if you want to depend on these lies, oh man, one day they're going to pay. At one point they're going to pay. And somehow they're going to pay. Or this is where people just enroll in the private sector and they say, you know what? It's really not even a big deal. The government's going to continue to do what they're doing. People are going to continue to get mulled over by lack of knowledge about the system and how it works. Oh, the corporations pay less in taxes. You know this. Get in line. You know this. How are you going to get ahead by going against what you know? I got to start from zero? That's literally what it sounds like. You got to start from zero. That's all it is. Starting from zero. I don't want to start from zero. I'm over 30 years old. I'm over 40 years old. What are you talking about? Like, there's so many successful people that have made it successful after 40 and 50. What are you talking about? Like, all you got to do is just focus on getting the right information, associating with the right people. The rest will take care of itself. How are you going to benefit from a government trust when you're the beneficiary and you're not in control of it? It's trust Christian, own nothing, control everything. The reason why people are not in control of the government trust is because they want to own it. Because they own their cars, they own their houses through tacit adhesion agreements, through mortgage contracts and lease contracts. That's what. How are you mad about the system and how it works when you're participating in that system as a beneficiary? Oh man, the government's using my signature as the guarantor. I'm the surety. If it wasn't for me signing, my signature is as good as gold. There's a one-way contract. The contract is supposed to work in my favor, but really it wasn't written in my favor. It's written in the lending contracts company favor. Correct. It's written in the lending contract's favor. Right? So I'm the only one that signed it, and as soon as I signed it, it's mine because no one's really going to come and collect. Well, fair enough. If you want to take your chances, go ahead. Nevertheless, ladies and gentlemen, if somebody wants to sit here and wait for the government to give them something as a beneficiary, they're going to be waiting a while. Someone actually put something in the chat that was very interesting about immigration, and we're gonna see. We're gonna see once again. This was a good conversation. Definitely appreciate you for typing into the chat. Appreciate everybody typing into the chat. Feel free to type in where you listening live or listen replay from. Definitely appreciate it. Somebody said something about immigration, and this is gonna be something that a lot of the Western countries are dealing with right now. This is gonna be a continued issue. Is immigration? It's definitely gonna be a continued issue. So you see the private families saying we don't want families to come in or people to come into countries that are not legal. And then the government trust, what are they doing? The government trust is letting them come in. Oh yeah, we're gonna go ahead and take advantage of cheaper labor. They were already thousands of miles away. We might as well import them in. Now we don't have to export the work. Do you hear the difference? The government trust is how it benefits everybody. The private trust is about how it benefits you and your family. Could sound a little selfish, but it at least holds and preserves family values, which are important because whether y'all know it or not, the government trust is to preserve family values. It allows multiple religions to worship under the same country. That's not in every country. So it's a beautiful thing where multiple religions can come together under the government trust and work together. Whereas in the private trust, people are in more of a selfish position. Nothing wrong with that, but more of a family and selfish position, which is fine. So there are benefits to the government trust, quote unquote, and the private trust. It's like asking, well, why do we need the government trust? Well, the private trusts were around because the private families were around first. And then in turn, the families got so big, the jurisdictions got so big, we're not going to sit here and say, oh, there wasn't slavery or slavery in multiple jurisdictions, not one jurisdiction, multiple jurisdictions. So they still wanted to protect property. That's what it's all about, is protecting property. So in turn, the government, we gotta protect everybody's property here. That's how the conversation started. All right, we gotta protect our properties. How do we protect our properties? We have to come together in a group conversation, and that's a government. That's a group conversation. That's not an individual private family conversation. That's a group conversation. And in turn, they created a government. Did it benefit the people and the private families first? Yes. And it will always do that. So the government trust is not for everybody, even though people think it is, or they would like for it to be. Sounds good. Nothing wrong with that. It's just, okay, it's not for everybody. The private trust is not for everybody. The private sector is for private families that want to engage in self-reliance, autonomy. You get a lot of people for years now talking about sovereignty. Oh, I don't want to be a citizen of the states. First of all, if you're not a citizen, you're stateless. So once again, the worlds have created a world government, let alone a world trust. They created it. It's called the United Nations. People are traveling around. They use passports. It's rare that you can traverse from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. Rare. And not have a passport. It is what it is. Oh man, they have a RFID chip in here. They're tracking the passport. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're doing things the right way, if you're moving the right way, we're all moving right in plain sight. Private trusts are operating right in front of you in plain sight. Just like the government trust is operating in front of you and you think the government's doing a number on you or not doing the right things, there's private trust operating in front of you doing the same exact thing. There's no difference. The only difference is the name and structure and the people that are running it. And whether you know, even in the private sector, they still have government officials that are in the private sector that they have private things set up. This is just the information gap, ladies and gentlemen. And it's about developing that information. Nothing wrong with it. We just want to develop the information. The more we develop the information, the more private families will be able to preserve the government trust. They'll make sure that the government trust is funded, make sure that it's not operating inappropriately. There's been some bad seeds that have operated in the government trust. And it's going to take people that want to go in and operate as proper officials to make sure and not condemn it, but go in there and make sure that the things are getting done appropriately. If the fund was set up to be done properly, why is the fund going under? Because it was done by mismanagement. People have to go into these positions and operate with fiscal responsibility. The government every year says, oh man, we're thinking about raising the debt ceiling and this, that, and the third. When are people going to say, you know what, we need to vote people in that can run the business that the government is properly? But instead, no, we don't want that. We want to care about what people do with their bodies. These are the conversations people have. If anything, the government is more of a business entity than it is a personal getting your private situation entity. Oh, we got to dictate who you're married to and how you deal with your body. Not at all. But when it comes to financial fiscal responsibility, let's talk about it. Those conversations don't come up with government officials. Why? Oh, we got to go to the budgeting committee. We don't really know about this. We don't know about that. Right? Very important to be involved, ladies and gentlemen. Appreciate everybody for tuning in live, listening to replay. Always appreciate everybody that tunes in live, listening to replay. Feel free to reach out. Christian at trustchristian.com. Once again, that's Christian at trustchristian.com. Going to be doing a bunch more episodes here. Family Foundation and Trust Workshop. Feel free to reach out. It's in Miami. Christian at trustchristian.com. We're definitely going to bring in another guest speaker. So just know that the speakers that you see now up there are just two that we decided to name. We got some prying eyes nowadays looking over at the pages, so we're just going to keep some of the jewels and gems that we have for the actual workshop. But just know that the workshop is focused on trusteeship and family foundation. So just know it's about business, ladies and gentlemen. This is not a personal situation. It's not come and get some information. It's actually about building those relationships, establishing those relationships with other private families and the private. And so we're looking forward to serving. Christian at trustchristian.com is the email that you can use to reserve RSVP. Christian at trustchristian.com. Peace and joy.